Welcome back.
Today on Women in Nuclear, we speak to Grace Ateka, who is a radiation physicist at the KEBS, or rather the Kenya Bureau of Standards, as well as the Secretary General of the East Africa Association of Radiation, to understand more about her role in the entire nuclear sector. Thank you so much, Grace, for making time for us. And thank you as well for welcoming us to Nakuru. Yes, I like to understand a few things. From your alma mater, you seem to be a jack of all trades. You do your thing at the KEBS. You've also had a stint at other companies as well. And you've risen, someone would say, so fast, given that you're just 31 years old. What's your inspiration? What's the one thing that has been driving you to achieve and overcome all odds?
My inspiration in life is my love for science. And specifically, when I talk about science, I mean physics and mathematics. From a very young age, I've always been in love with science. For instance, when I was in primary, I used to do very well in math, and I carried that love for science back to high school. And as I joined university, I still wanted to pursue a career in science. So physics has been like, my love for physics has been my motivating factor to end up in the nuclear field. Yeah.
You've been a radiation physicist at the Kenya Bureau of Standards for quite a while. It's nearly 6 years now, and that just forms part of your experience, especially dealing with matters in nuclear science. Looking back at your career, what will be the biggest highlight of your career, Grace?
My biggest highlight in my career, first of all, I'll say I have, let me say 2 or 3 highlights in my career. One of the major one is the fact that last year I was representing the whole of Africa in a young nuclear conference. I was in charge of the whole of Africa, organizing and ensuring that the conference goes through. It gave me a very high, big mileage, and just being a woman and being able to be the one in charge and organizing the whole conference for the whole world made me feel like it's a good thing. Another highlight in my career is actually this event. Being among the youngest people who's been selected to mentor other young people in this event is also another highlight in my career. Yeah. Also, the opportunity of serving as the East Africa Association Secretary General is another highlight in my career, because it has given me a chance to test leadership at a very young age.
Indeed.
Yeah.
When somebody hears you are a radiation physicist at KEBS, someone would wonder, what role is that? I mean, just take us through what you do at the Kenya Bureau of Standards.
So at the Kenya Bureau of Standards, I'm a senior metrology officer, and I work in a lab called dosimetry lab. What we do is we do calibration for medical equipment. That is equipment that is used to measure radiation. For instance, an example of the equipment we do calibrate is calibration of X-rays, CT scanners, radiotherapy equipment, and equipment used for radiation protection. Yes.
Well, now, Grace, I'd like to switch gears, and let's face it, even within your workplace, I don't know whether this happens, but it's been notable in other areas, especially areas where technical roles are quite required, that women who've taken up these roles are quite less compared to the men who are in these particular roles. And actually, the technical field where nuclear science comes in is considered to be male-dominated. Why do you think that is such?
I think generally in Africa, women are perceived to be, I would say, I use a word, weak. So it's perceived that if you're a woman, you're supposed to take courses that are not really strong. That means it's assumed that you'll take courses which are not into science, as compared to our male counterparts who do take other courses in science, like maybe in nuclear. Yeah. So as we move way forward, that notion is coming to an end, because we're seeing more women coming into the nuclear field. Yeah.
This will be my last question. What will you tell a young female viewer who would like to advance their careers in science, just in a sentence or two?
So for me, I would tell any young woman to always do the best in everything they do. Yeah.
On our Did You Know segment, we poke holes and demystify narratives that paint nuclear energy as the leading contributor of carbon emissions. Did you know that nuclear power plants do not produce direct carbon dioxide emissions during operation and over the course of their life cycle? In fact, the plants only produce about the same amount of carbon dioxide equivalent emissions per unit of electricity as wind, and 1/3 of the emissions per unit of electricity when compared with solar. This means that nuclear energy does not pose a threat to environment, since it does not produce emissions that contribute to respiratory diseases among people, pollution, climate change, and global warming. Now you know. We now switch gears to the My View segment, where we feature another nuclear essay contest winner. What was her take?
Hello, my name is Precious Nekesa Wanjala, a pupil at Film School in Bungoma County and the primary school level winner of the NUPEA 2020 essay contest. My essay was on the many opportunities that nuclear electricity has to offer to Kenyans and why the country cannot afford to miss out on this revolutionary venture. My view is that we need light to do almost everything. At home, we can work easily with light. At school, we can even study at night with sufficient light. And in the streets, we can find our way around smoothly with light above us no matter what time it is. With this demand for power on the rise, we now need nuclear electricity more than ever before to fill the vacuum. With the advent of nuclear electricity, many job opportunities will also be created for plenty of unemployed young people, while the country will also be able to export energy to neighboring countries, boost its bilateral trade, and as a result, earn foreign exchange. Generation of nuclear power will further decrease deforestation in the country, especially in rural areas where people will no longer require firewood as a source of fuel, but instead reliable, clean nuclear electricity.
And finally, it is time for our International Atomic Energy Agency video of the day.
The realities of a warming planet are all around us. With nuclear science and technology, we can mitigate greenhouse gas emissions, monitor changes to the environment, and adapt with techniques such as climate-smart agriculture. These are just some of the many uses of nuclear technology that make up the IAEA's multifaceted approach to climate change. The environmental challenge of our time is here. With the power of the atom, we have the tools to help tackle it. In Zimbabwe, nuclear techniques are helping a village to adapt to climate change, which has made droughts more frequent.
When there is drought, actually there is very little to feed the families, and the parents have pressure to look for food, leaving children with no basic things like education.
Chronic drought also meant families had no crops to sell. Without that income, many couldn't afford school fees.
We had low attendance in schools. It was due to economic hardships.
But now, this village is starting to thrive. Isotopic techniques determined the exact amount of water and fertilizer needed for crops. Using that data, a drip irrigation system was set up. It uses half as much water as before, but produces far more crop per drop.
Pagore taiwana isusu 6 tons per half a hectare in tomatoes. Yes, not 18 tons per half a hectare pamadomasi.
With bigger harvests, families can start selling crops again, and they can afford to send their kids back to school.
For last year, we had 895 learners in the school, but for this year, we now have 960 due to the introduction of the drip irrigation. Really, I would like to say it was a blessing to the school.
Innovations in plant breeding are speeding up the rate that better crop varieties can be developed to reduce global hunger. For nearly 100 years, gamma rays have been used to safely induce mutations and enhance the genetic diversity of crops like barley or quinoa. Mutation breeding has already developed thousands of improved crop varieties with valuable traits for farmers, such as resistance to disease or tolerance to drought. Nuclear scientists are now taking a new approach, using genetic markers to find the chosen mutant trait, so that breeders don't have to grow several generations to find out if a plant has the desired mutation.
So it's something that can accelerate and enhance the impact of mutation breeding.
The goal is to be able to quickly identify a positive trait in a mutant plant and then introduce that trait in other varieties.
What we hope to say to the member states in the future is, first of all, that we'll have a toolkit that allows to introduce traits that they're interested in into their locally adapted varieties. And then, equally important, I think that we can provide the trainings on how to do it themselves in the future.
A global project to track the journeys of specific raindrops is harnessing the power of big data to monitor water supplies for our thirsty planet. Every month, for over 50 years, researchers have gathered rainwater from stations like this in Vienna and hundreds of other sites around the world. The unique isotopic signatures or fingerprints of each rain sample are recorded, and this information is entered into a large online database where it's compared to similar data from surface water to see which raindrops end up in which rivers.
This large amount of data allows researchers to better understand the water cycle. For example, how, when and where water is recharged. This information is key for managing water resources, especially in the light of climate change.
The datasets and maps are available to download for free and can be used in many ways. For example, in Costa Rica, where they're helping the government identify key locations to protect groundwater so they can target conservation measures and avoid drought.
We now know which areas need special attention. We know how to protect them to ensure water supply for now and the coming decades.
On that active note, we wrap up things on this second episode of our Nuclear Energy in Kenya series. But remember, we are just getting started. 8 more episodes are lined up for you. You cannot wait to see what they have to offer. Remember, you can always keep the conversation going on our social media platforms, that is TV47 Kenya on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. This episode has been powered by the Nuclear Power and Energy Agency. Till next time.